flying by the seat of my pants right now because we did put a new presentation out yesterday with the release of an updated preliminary economic assessment. So before I jump into that, I'm just going to step back 21 years. So 21 years ago, I was a young geologist working in Red Lake, actually acting as chief geologist in the Campbell mine. And there are a lot of really good things that happened. One, my daughter was born, and two, Campbell mine crossed 10 million ounces. And at the time, just across the fence was the Dickinson mine, and it had about 3 million ounces. And so I'd walk around talking to the geos and talk about the work plans for the day, and I stopped by one of the geos and I said, so what are you doing? And he says, I'm buying Goldcorp. I said, why are you buying Goldcorp? There's strike action right now. They've got the Wharf mine, Dickinson mine. I'm not sure they're going to make it beyond this. Then I go home, and my wife, who's working for Bearskin Airlines, she said, you know what? There's a bunch of diamond drillers that are flying in from Quebec every day. They're getting on a bus, and they're driving to Dickinson. So what was happening is they were exploring without the pressure of production in front of them. They were thinking about the geology, and at the end of the day, they discovered the high-grade zone, and that really did transform that asset. And so at the same time, what was Madsen known for? Madsen was known for a natural ice curling rink. And so fast forward to today, or I guess 3 years ago, I'm sitting down with Mark O'Day, and we're talking about how can we succeed in a difficult metals environment? And so we said we want the right jurisdiction, we want high grade, and we want access to infrastructure. And we talked about a lot of different things, and it was actually Mark who first said, what about Red Lake? So because of my experience at Campbell Mine and the recognition of what grade can do for you, we acted upon it. And I can say that over the last 3 years, we've come a long ways. Capital structure shown here, 192 million shares, about 5 million in working capital today. You can see from the right side, we've got a strong list of strategic shareholders. AngloGold Ashanti holding at just under 11%, Goldcorp sitting there at 7.2%, and Rob McEwen himself holding just under 10%. Again, we're in Red Lake, we're on the southern half of the camp, and so 3 years ago, the premise was new discovery in the Red Lake mine based on strong geoscience and understanding what's controlling high-grade mineralization. Step to the south at Madsen, second largest historic producer. You can see the numbers on there, 2.5 million ounces of historic production. A resource now sitting at about 1.65 million ounces in indicated, another 180,000 ounces in inferred. It's a 4.5 million ounce deposit, and we felt it hadn't had a strong application of science. So we've moved a long ways. We started, I guess the first 2 years, we were really, what's missing? We walked over 3,500 outcrops, we collected some geochemical samples, and importantly, we took the extensive data set and started to think about the geological question. And what we did is we fundamentally changed the belief of how gold was controlled and how it was, what those fundamental controls were for mineralization in Madsen. And that understanding really drove the opportunities. So we started to test that about 2 years ago with an aggressive drilling program. Over the last 2 years, we've drilled about 150,000 meters. We've had success extending mineralization in the footwall of the deposit down below any historic mining. We've had success in some of the satellite targets in developing mineralization. And that success translated into an updated resource, which we put out on August 2nd, which I just showed. It was a 48% increase in indicated resources. We also have the opportunity of working in an environment that's blessed with a lot of infrastructure. You can see some pictures on here. When we acquired Madsen, it had a resource, which we've expanded. It has a mill on site, 600 tons per day in our latest study. It's got a tailings facility. We've got underground workings. We've recently reopened the underground, and we're drilling from surface and underground to continue to move the project forward towards production. An overhead shot of the infrastructure here. The portal and ramp is shown on the bottom of the screen. That's where we're active underground. It's about a 400 meter distance from the mill on site there. So here's the results of the economic assessment, and this really is the culmination of the last 3 years of work and expanded resource. We started to think about it, and one of the things that came out of that expanded resource was, and this just comes back to Red Lake, the value of the high-grade material that's in there. So we started to look at a portion of the resource, the 8 zone, which hosts a resource that grades better than 20 grams per ton. And we thought, let's see if we can bring this into an economic study. So we did a trade-off study. We looked at 8 different options for going deeper down into the mine. We settled on an option, which is a ramp-supported scenario. It'll use a combination of diesel trucks and battery-operated trucks to get down there, and we're bringing that high grade forward as quickly as we can. And what that's done is it's translated into a robust long-life mine with 911,000 ounces of recovered gold at a diluted head grade of 10.3 grams per ton. We're showing a pre-tax NPV of $365 million, post-tax of $265 million. Our peak operating years from years 5 to 9 will generate more than 80,000 ounces a year with after-tax cash flow of $50 million a year. And this is all done with, again, the infrastructure largely in place, an initial capital of $51 million. So it's a very positive economic story in Red Lake by taking strong science and saying, what can we do with this? What are the opportunities? This is done with our current market capitalization, which sits at around $110 million. So we talked a little about the geology. This is the map of the geology on the ground. We'll show a cross section here and talk a little bit some of the upside that we have available to us. The 8th zone is shown at depth here. This will come into our preliminary economic assessment, our mine plan, and it's open, both down plunge and out plunge. So 2 years ago, we thought, well, difficult to explore down at depth. Let's look at what's up at surface. We projected to surface. We started to look on the ground, and we saw all the things we want to see in a high-grade system. And so we tested that. Our first hole into the Russet South target area returned 3.5 meters and 9.5 grams. Our second hole was 11 meters at 8.2 grams. These both sat about 75 meters below surface. We stepped 200 meters to the south and we drilled 2.9 meters at 39 grams at 10 meters down hole. And what's really interesting about this is if you lay the core of the 8th zone next to the core of the Russet South target area, they look identical. They're in the exact same geological environment. And we're looking at about 1.6 kilometers between the two with very limited testing. So moving forward, this is a real focus for us. We'll be testing up plunge of the 8th zone to look for expansions that can bring into our mine plan, and we'll start pushing the Russet South target area down to look at the roots of that part of the system. The Russet South target area and other satellite deposits that we've been working on are not part of our current resource. They will come into an updated resource that we intend to release in Q4 of this year. So this image here just kind of flips into plan view and shows you some of the geology and some of the things we've understood. The Austin and McVeigh form the bulk of the mineralization that goes into our mine plan. And as we step to the south or the left on this image, you'll see the Fork Zone, the Starrett Olson Mine, the 8600, the de Villiers and Creek. We all tie this into a common geologic model that we can explain and use to target opportunities. The Russet South target area shown there on the top of the screen is about 1.5 kilometers from the existing Madsen mine and mill infrastructure. And as it comes into a resource, it has the potential to have a positive impact on future economics by giving us the flexibility in a mine plan environment. So project enhancement opportunities are shown here. There's resource expansion potential as I've described. We'll have a new update in Q4 that'll incorporate those satellite deposits. Optimization of the mine plan, we're going to be looking at some of the larger mineralized shapes in there for mechanized cut and fill and importantly long hole. And we'll be looking at ramp sequencing to see if we can push the capital out and still bring the high grade forward. Our mill is 600 tons per day, but our existing certificate of approval to operate the mill and tailings facility highlights 1,089 tons per day of mill capacity. And so we'll be looking at the opportunities to expand the mill to increase the annual throughput moving forward. And finally, we've got grade recovery. Our study considered a grade recovery of 92%. Historically, the mine operated an average of 94%. So with a little bit of test work, we have an opportunity here to improve the economics with the existing study. So we've had a very busy year, and it'll continue to be so moving forward. With the release of the preliminary economic assessment, the team is now working on a critical path schedule to look at what does the next year look like. And with a long life, robust mine with strong economics and low initial capital, I believe that we'll likely be moving towards feasibility. So we're working on a plan here over the next few weeks, which will be disclosed to the market in the near future. We are going to continue underground drilling. We released some results a couple weeks ago from underground that showed very strong grade and reasonable widths at the fringes of the resource. So there's a potential to expand the resource within the Madsen mine environment. And our surface drilling will also continue targeting things like the down plunge extension of Russet South and up plunge of the 8th zone. Again, updated mineral resource to come out in Q4 17, and we'll continue to do some baseline work to ensure that 18 months down the road we're fully permitted for an operation. And so with that, I'll conclude and thank you very much.